If you're looking in the book and you say, well, there's already a drug chart, that second one, Miss Cook updated that one for me. And so we'll be able to take a look at some of those and give you a little more idea on where to find some of these things later on. Our youth have a former NFL football player down there with them. So when you saw the guy coming in who was about 6'8", probably 350, that was him. In case you're wondering whether we've picked up a few people that are better security or not, but no. I told him when I visited with him, I said, you know, I did that for about 15 years. I spoke nationally on all these different topics and spent a lot of time doing all of this. And I truly appreciate what he's doing. If you can imagine, and I can't imagine me doing this now, but at that time, I guess I was probably 45. And I could do 2 or 3 school assemblies back to back in a gym. And I was telling him, of course, you always go into the gym and they hand you the microphone and you pick it up and say, hello. I just want to say, you. And so you have to throw it down. And you know you're going to have to keep those kids' attention for about 50 minutes. You're going to have to move all over that auditorium. You're going to have to go eyeball to eyeball, and you're going to have to keep going for about an hour to engage them and talk about these different things. But let me say to you, as an adult doing that, I was not some rock star. I was just me. And I would give them the best advice I could over that period of time. But when I was out working in those schools and doing this, I would get to the end of the day and I would have a focus group and I'd say, tell me something that made a lot of difference. Tell me something I never need to say again. Just let me know. And I said, what made the difference? And invariably, they said, you care. That's all. You care. And they would sit and listen so attentively to me because I cared. The second thing was they said, you're brutally honest. And I said, what good does it do to lie about anything if you're going to try to solve the truth? You can't solve the truth if you're working with a lie. And so that's what I've tried to say to you. Now, we have our internet audience picking up on Zoom right now and other areas, and I want to let them know if you've got a book, it's on page 44. Also want to say to you, if you're online, if you go to the NSBC website, nsbcweatherford.com, and you go down the page there, and it's going to show either resources, I think, and then it'll have clickbait. Click on that, and you'll see the recording from last week, and there should be a Live Now somewhere in there. Keep looking for Live Now. If you get it by about 7:15, we'll see you the last 15 minutes. With me and the internet on that. So I want to begin with a word of prayer. And what I want to pray for tonight, this week, some of the situations I've dealt with are so difficult. And in many ways, you'd say so unnecessary. And yet, everything happens because something happened before it. Nothing just happens. Something happened before it. And if you can really understand what happened before it, maybe you can understand why it happened. But sometimes people walk in the office and they tell me what happened and I don't have the story of what was before it. And it'd be so easy to judge them. Well, how could you do that? Why would you do that? Why didn't you do this? Well, because I never had what you had before this. Now, tonight I want to pray for the numbers of people who are fighting, have fought, continue to fight addiction And I'm not talking about drugs, I'm talking about addiction, whatever that might be, pornography, money, gambling, whatever it might be. I want to pray for those people. And I want to pray that they might know that there's someone who's seeking to understand them. And it's not me, it's God, who already understands them. Father, I thank you for the great privilege you've given us to be able to know some things. God, it's amazing what knowing some things does to the course of our life. That some people don't know some things. And because of that, their lives get into turmoil and their families go into chaos. Sometimes it goes generational before somebody figures out maybe there's something I can do different. But God, tonight, as we discuss these different things, may you help us know that whether we've got a problem in our family or not, there's some family we know that has a problem. And that there's going to be a way that we can help them if we'll just share some of the information and try to understand. Thank you for Jesus, who is acquainted with all of our weaknesses. In his name I pray, amen. So we got to this part on Speak Up, and I don't have a back monitor, so I may be clear off of it here, and if I get clear off, make a funny signal, wave your hand, kiss your husband, do something over there. Where we can get it going. We talked about the fact, this will be on page 47 for you, that prevention is your job. Nobody can do prevention of alcohol, drug abuse, or any other thing to you. Prevention must be done by you. If you're going to be able to stay away from certain things, nobody can protect you away from. Protection's protection. Prevention is prevention. We talked about the fact that prevention is not keeping a child away from drugs or keeping a child away from sex or keeping a child away from guns, but equipping a child to walk through a drug-filled, sex-crazed, violent world safely. It's the equipping. And what they need to be equipped with is the most important thing. Now, I studied with the White House Conference for a Drug-Free America. I studied with up at Norman, Oklahoma, at the regional drug center up there, and went through weeks of training in that, and then other conferences all over the nation about what prevention is. I went over to Dallas to work with the Dallas Drug-Free Initiative in public housing. And in about 3 weeks, I was made chairman. And they said, well, you know so much more than we do. I hadn't worked that field. I mean, my goodness, I don't know if I'd ever seen a marijuana cigarette by then. I don't know what. I'm kind of like, what's going on? Why was I good at prevention? Because that's what I did for a living. The 12 Commandments are a prevention statement. I work prevention. Don't do this and you won't have this problem. Other people work treatment. Since you've done this, we've got to try to work you back out of it. And so the prevention principles are all basically the same when they're applied in the right way. Now, one of the things that we're going to look at with this is that communicating your important in your best I got to go so fast tonight. Communicating important information to your children is not best done in a classroom. It's best done in the home. It's best done in the home where they can ask questions and you can understand where they stand at the grade level, intellect, maturity level, and other things that make up their circumstances. Now, the information that you possess has got to be communicated at the level that they understand. I was asked the question last week, at what age do you start talking to children about drugs? At what age can they pick up a pill? That's where you start. At whatever age they can pick up a pill. Now, you don't want to start getting around to a 3-year-old and saying everybody who does drugs is really a bad person, because they're going to go to grandma's house and think she's really a bad person. So don't go there with that. This next one is that we talked about this. Parents communicate logically, kids listen emotionally. That's in your book there. Deal with the facts. I'm sorry I jumped one. Deal with the facts. Don't just say, I've heard smoking marijuana causes both your eyeballs to turn green after 16 years and they fall out. Don't scare them to death. I'm going to go back to this statement because it's important. Home is where I go to sort out the stuff in my life. Now, if that is my physical environment where I go and I spend time, and I stay there and I have opportunity there to be there, then I want you to know that's great. But if that home is not helping me sort out the stuff in my life, then I'm going to talk to kids on the street because they're going to help me sort out the stuff in my life. I'm going to go to somebody else. I'm going to watch TV. It'll help me sort out the stuff in my life. Keeping silent about difficult issues is not going to help your child. Keeping them totally away from all of the things that this world is sending them is not going to create any prevention in your child. Now, let's talk about helping youth to identify. Well, I think I need back here. What's inoculation? Inoculation is this, and that's on page 48. Inoculation is this. When you bring a child in and say, so where are you going tonight? Well, I'm going over Johnny's. We're going to go over to Fred's, and we're all going to spend some time. We're going to have a party. What are you going to do if Johnny brings drugs? Oh, he's not going to do that. That's not what I ask you. What are you going to do if Johnny brings drugs? What if you're out with your friends and they all decide it's 12 o'clock and they're bored and they're going to go bust for beer? What are you going to do? Oh, they wouldn't do that. Really? Then you're not going because you're not aware enough to know that's what kids do. And that can happen to some of your best friends. My question is not, is he going to do it? My question is, what are you going to do if he does it? Now you set up a prevention plan that if something happens at that party, you know that your child knows what to do to be able to get help if anything happens. But if you haven't talked to that child, you're going to worry about what's going on. It's like when the child doesn't come home at 12 o'clock and we get emotional. And we start calling everybody. They were supposed to be in at 11. They're not here at 12. We start calling the police department, fire department, every hospital. We're going through all this, and they come through that door. When those kids come through that door, what do you say to them? Don't tell me. We're in church, all right? What you should say to them is what? I'm worried sick. That's the truth. It's not, you're going to be grounded until St. Patrick's Day's on Christmas. It's going to be, you scare me to death. Do you understand how I felt? Do you understand what that made me feel like? That's what you feel. And then one of the greatest statements in the world, you go in and go to bed, we'll talk tomorrow about what this means for the rest of your life. I'm not going to stay up all night worried about it. I'm going to let you go worry about what's going to happen to me because of this. Give them the facts and don't treat them emotionally. Now, this information about talk around kids, don't talk to them. Anytime you want to really communicate with a 14-year-old, close the door. They will hear everything you say behind a closed door. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You try to get right in their face, and they're going to start bucking back. I don't know anything about drugs. They're going to get nervous. They're going to think something's going to happen because they know something. Well, Dad, yeah, I do know about sex. I'm sorry. Well, you're not supposed to be sorry you know about sex. It's the issue is what do you know and how can I help you? But if you're going to be emotional about it, that kid's not going to tell you a thing. Now, what happens here is whenever you are standing with someone else or you're around the dinner table, bring it up with an adult friend. It may be that your cousin's sitting there and you go, man, have you heard about this fentanyl problem? Have you heard about this teen pregnancy increase? Isn't it amazing some girls would give up their bodies so quickly without understanding all of the STDs that are out there and all the dangers involved in it and the things that can happen? Do not look at your teenage daughter. Look straight at him and have a discussion. You can talk about anything as long as you don't talk at them. Just don't talk at them. The next thing is this, modeling. There's more than speaking to the child. When you turn the page somewhere in there around page 50, 80% of all behavior is model behavior. 80% of the way a child lives their life is not off what you told them, but the way they did it. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all. I did not want to be her. But here I am her. How did that happen? You looked at her. In the abuse in my own family and some of the things that were going on, I stared at my dad. I stared at my dad. I looked him down all the time because I hated him. I didn't like what he did. I didn't like the way he acted. Guess what? You become like what you look at. And before you know it, I was doing the same things he was. And then I hated me. Modeling is so important when you get into all of these different behaviors. Now, talk around, we just said that, you don't say that again. Boy, I like that statement. Boy, I like that statement. Okay, here we go. We're going. All right. Children are receptors and reflectors. That's the way they learn. They receive information and they reflect it back because that's the proper behavior. They set the table the way you set the table. They greet people the way you greet people. They do things the way you did. Your family has certain traditions, actions, attitudes, and vocabulary that is unique to your life. And it's unique because they've been around you and they merely model back what's going on. Big deal. If I want to change my child, change me. If I want to make sure they don't get into this. Now, especially feelings. If there's any one thing that I would go back and say that there's one thing that must be taught to every child before they get out of grade school. And not only taught, but given them lessons on how to work it out is, how do you express feelings? Almost every couple that I deal with, I find that one of them has an emotional language and the other one doesn't have an emotional language. I think I talked with you about that, didn't I? Did I talk about this? One of them is saying, the sky is so blue, and I look in your eyes, and I see the rolling waters, and my heart flutters, and he goes, right? And so it's just, and you say, well, tell me, and he goes, well, I love you. And it's no emotional language. Well, children need to learn how to express emotions verbally. Why? Because, what we don't talk out, we act out. And you can mark that down. You can put it in gold. You can strike it. Where you want to write that, you can put it down. What I will not verbalize, I will behave. It will come out through my actions. What I don't talk out, I will act out. In the middle of all of this, we find out that these kids are trying their very best to learn how to handle all of these feelings that are inside them. There's so much more I want to say about that. Now, when you are dealing with your parental history and you've got alcoholism in the family, and we're going to deal with this next week when we come to how do you identify someone on drugs, how can you tell when someone's using, how do you deal with someone who is using, how do I not only identify, but how do I help them to get off of those drugs? That's going to be next week. But one of the things I want you to know is that when your child says, well, did you do drugs? All right, your first thing is, oh man, did you ever get drunk, Dad? Well, guess what? It's not about you. Hello? It's not about you. The issue is not whether or not you use drugs. The issue is whether or not they're not going to. And when they start trying to pin you down and say, well, did you all have premarital sex? Well, did you ever look at those books? Well, did you ever do that? You've got to be able to stay neutral. If you say, yes, I did, then they're going to say, so what are you on me about? If you say, no, I didn't, they're going to say, then what would you know about it? They've got you either way. And so what you've got to do if you're going to communicate about alcohol or other drugs and other behaviors is you have to step back and say, you know what? It's not about me. When you get old enough, we'll have this discussion. But right now the question is, how do we make sure you stay drug-free, free from guns and violence, how you stay free from all this stuff? That's our number one thing. You're going to find if you do have that past and you've got alcoholism in your family, that your children and grandchildren are highly, highly, highly susceptible. that when they drink alcohol, it's not like when you drink alcohol. When you drink alcohol, you go, well, that's fine, I'll have water now. When they drink alcohol, it's like nirvana. All of a sudden, there's things going off. They feel, because that genetic predisposition has deposited some chemicals into that brain through the years. And this individual now, when they drink, they really can't stop. It's really gotten away from it. I want you to also be aware that if you're going to break the cycle, and you can look on page 56 of your book, there's some information there on breaking the cycle of addiction in the family, and it's very, very important. I got to hurry because I want to get Bill up here. Again, don't lie to your child. Do not lie to your child. Do not lie to your child. Now, I'm not talking about some little thing, he wouldn't understand. I'm talking about don't give them things that aren't facts because you want to try to scare them into not getting into drug abuse or something like that. All right, it's about themselves. It's about the child. Be a good listener. There's insights on that on page 59. I'm also going to tell you in the book, and I can't go through all of this. I wish I had time. There are some listings there as to when children really are susceptible, and I hope we can get to that here pretty quick. Okay, this is so important. There are so many people who are trying to please everybody else. Hello? There are so many people who are trying to be somebody by making themselves important to somebody else. They have no identity if they sit alone. They have no identity unless someone else gives them identity. And so they're always trying to impress. And if you tell them how you caught an 8-pound catfish on a hook, they'll tell you how they caught it on a clothespin. I mean, they've always got to go one up. There's always something that has to be about what I did. This statement, that a young person who feels insignificant will do something to be somebody, is why a 5th grader smokes cigarettes. Smoke cigarettes, be a man. 5th grader, 6th grader, 7th grader, smoke cigarettes, drink beer, be a man. Smoke cigarettes, drink beer, have sex, be a man. What are they doing? What are you doing with a 5th grader walking down the street with a 100-millimeter cigarette in their mouth? 100 millimeter? Or is that, no, it'd be, no. I mean, there's no reason for him to have that thing. What's he doing? He's mimicking. He's trying to be somebody. I always used to tell the kids in high school, smoke cigarettes, drink beer, have sex, be a man. I can teach a monkey to do all three. That doesn't make a monkey a man. And a monkey that hadn't been drinking will have sex better than the man who has. So I will go on from that point. The issue being, if your child or your grandchild cannot develop a sense of personal significance, they're going to become so vulnerable to what else is going on. There's a story in there about Susan. It's a true story about a young girl that ended up with a teen pregnancy. And that was in my office. And I want you to understand, when you're talking about making sure your kids don't get into drug abuse and don't get into some of these other things, if they don't recognize and realize that they need to find significance. Now, how are you going to do that? Well, you'll have to come to my next seminar on that. But the biggest thing is, don't think you can give it to them. Mamas are supposed to think their kids are cool. So when mama says you're really cool, that doesn't do a lot for them. But if you realize they idolize Uncle Joe, and Uncle Joe says he's cool, that makes a difference. So some way you find some people who begin to see them as significant. They begin to praise them with real praise, not you're really somebody, you're neat, you're sweet, no, I love the way you do that. It's amazing how you do that. I've never seen a guy really with your kind of attitude. If you want a child that's drug-free, make sure that child knows that they are significant. Sometimes it's very hard. And I'll tell you why sometimes it's very hard. Because you as a parent don't feel significant. And you don't know how to make the child feel significant because you're insignificant. And you've already modeled to them. Help everybody else. Make yourself somebody by doing something for somebody else. Make yourself somebody by what you do. Instead of learning, you know what? Who you are is very, very special. All across America, I've tried to get this message across. You can try to get the drugs out of the world. You can try to get the guns out of the world. You can try to get all that stuff out of the world. It's not what you want to get out of the world. It's what you want to get into the kid. It's what you want to get into the adult who's trying to fight back. Is you can be somebody else. You are. And you don't have to see yourself in that. Jesus Christ gives us the best example of that, by the way. The need is significance. They go for attention and self-pity. The need is respect. They want intimidation. The need is responsibility. They're looking for rights. I want my rights. Well, if you want rights, be responsible. Amen? You don't get rights just because you exist. You want to be loved. They transfer that to sex. They want power, and they try to do it by blaming others, and they become victims. Now, I'm pouring a lot of stuff. Are you still with me? Have I lost you totally here? Effective prevention. What does that have to do with all these things? Everything. Everything. I just want people who come into my office to understand they are valued because God made them, period. Period. And there's somebody special because God made them unique. Now, the next part is to accept that and become to be what God made you to be and quit trying to be like everybody else. Because you're going to fail at that. Hello, hello. I'm so glad that happened. You got your book. Let's go with this. All right, facts on alcohol. I'll try to find your page number here. Uh-oh, listen up. I'm lost as a goose. Somebody find how do kids handle alcohol real fast. I'm going to bring Bill up here in just a minute. What is it? Oh, it did? Okay. 12-ounce bottle of beer is equal to a 5-ounce glass of wine or an ounce of 100 proof liquor. If you'll hold that kit up, I want them to see that kit right now. And in that kit, you're going to see the smallest bottle of beer you've ever seen in your life. Smallest can of beer is right here in this kit. When he holds this up, we're going to talk about some of the different drugs that are out there. This is going to be after we talk about alcohol. The first thing I want you to understand about alcohol is this. How do kids handle alcohol? Listen, if you're one of those people who says, my kids don't drink except at home, my kids don't drink unless somebody's there, no child under the age of 18 should ever have alcohol in their possession or use. It's illegal. 21. Am I right? 21. No alcohol. You are literally putting a huge damage into this child's life when you begin to open that door for this kind of stuff. These kids don't drink like adults. They drink like addicts. They drink like alcoholics. When you ask them what they're doing, they're going to binge. I wish that worked. Alcohol's a drug. Teens drink like alcoholics. They talk about getting blitzed. They talk about getting wasted. It's the most frequently used drug among kids. It's the most common contributing factor in auto accidents and accidental death. And responsible drinking is impossible by irresponsible teens. Now, you've got to communicate this to the child, and I'm going to show you how a little bit by what alcohol does, all right? I'm going to take alcohol right away and tell you something about alcohol. Alcohol, when it gets into the body, goes straight to the brain. And when it goes to the brain, it basically goes to the brain side that has the highest level of cells that are firing out. You can set that down right now. I'll be back to it in a minute. Yes, it would work there. When the blood goes, it goes to the left side of your brain first. The left side of your brain has the highest vessels close to the surface. Talk to your kid. Get this. Those vessels on that side absorb the alcohol first. Guess which side of the brain that is? It's the logic side of the brain. The right side of the brain is colors, numbers, it's pictures, but it's not logic. And so when you get that alcohol going over here and it begins to flow into the brain, guess what it does? It deadens those brain cells. When it's deadening those brain cells, you begin to feel real happy. You don't have pressure anymore. You don't have any stress. If I drink more of it, I get even less concerned about reality. And if I drink enough of it, I don't care about anything. And if I drink enough of it, every hole in my body is going to be trying to get rid of it because I'm poisoned. I'm poisoned. And by poisoning, I mean the next morning you're going to have after effects that you could go to a hospital and they would say, you've got this chemical in your system and it's poisoned you. Don't let kids buy this thing about that you can drink all this alcohol and it's not going to affect you. But here's the biggest thing. Why are they drinking? Why are they doing marijuana? Why are they doing meth? Why are they doing it? What is the reason for it? Well, they want to party. Not normally. I'm going to tell you why they want to do it. They want to stop the pain. They want to stop the pain. Why does an adult get into alcohol abuse? They want to stop the pain. Why does a guy drink so many beers when he gets home? He wants to stop the pain. And it all starts with, I just want to kill the pain. I don't want to think anymore. Well, you're smoking. There's one thing about it. I mean, you can read scripture and pray, but nothing will work like a marijuana cigarette. Now, the difference is that marijuana cigarette, oh, by the way, where does it go to affect your body? The brain. So if I take something like heroin, where does it go to affect? The brain. You're playing with your brain. Mood alteration is mind alteration. You don't change your emotions because your heart's doing different. Now, cocaine race it? Yeah, how's it do it? The brain. Does meth speed up the heart? Absolutely. How? The brain. So all of a sudden, you've got these kids that are drinking this alcohol, and they're 16, 17, 18. What are you supposed to be doing when you're 16, 17, and 18 or 19? You're supposed to be developing coping skills. You're supposed to be developing the ability to deal with life and relationships and know how to handle that stuff by dealing with them without numbing your brain. How do you end up with a 25-year-old guy who's smoking dope's got 3 kids and can't go to work? Marijuana. Could be alcohol. Somehow, and I don't know how this happens, but they can't equate that that's their problem. They can't figure out that the drugs are causing their problem. They just think that everybody's on them too much. They turn into victims, and they begin to be carried out by the state, taken care of. Now, alcohol is one I'm going to talk to you about a little more, because what happens with alcohol in your system, in your brain, you've got the axons, which are these long-running threads, okay, that carry messages. They come up to a synapse, and when they come up to that synapse, there are certain synapses that are shaped to receive the message. And they find those faster than you and I, well, faster than we can think for sure. But they find that and they transfer that message. That axon is covered with what's called the myelin sheath. I'm telling you why you get drunk here in case you're wondering, all right? By the way, Americans drink enough beer every day to stack a baseball stadium 30 foot high. There's enough beer in America. Some of you are looking at me like you're not getting your share, but that's not the point here. It's really the fact that much is so. The myelin sheath, you know what it does? Ladies, have any of you used beer to strip your hair? No? Are you kidding me? That was a big deal when I was growing up. No, why do you pour beer on your hair? Because it's a stripper. It strips all the other chemicals out. It strips away all that stuff that you put in there to try to make it look good that's now making it look bad. And so you pour the beer on and it strips away all those chemicals. So what is it? It's a stripper. It strips the myelin sheath. Now you lay down 2 wires that are carefully insulated and they'll pass current all day, even if one's positive and one's negative. You lay down 2 wires that have no insulation, guess what? They short. And when they short, you can't think. When they short like that, you're intoxicated. You're poisoned. Now, these kids have got to understand you don't just go, okay, I'm done with that. I want to go somewhere else now. Marijuana clogs the synapse, gets right in the middle of that synapse. And every time your brain tries to fire off into the other side, it can't because it's blocked. And guess what? You just think it's cool. And you're dumb as a stump. And you can't remember what time it is. And sometimes you're not sure where you're supposed to be. Now, next week, we're going to get to how do you tell the sign and symptom. But what I want you to understand tonight is these drugs make an effect. And I'm going to have Bill come up in about 3 minutes. I am not going, you've got that drug chart, and if you'll pull it out, you can take a look at it. And on that chart, you're going to see all different categories of drugs. Cannabis is what? Marijuana. Cannabis is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. That's the THC. Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol in the marijuana causes the high. CBC does not have the delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol at those levels, therefore it doesn't cause the kind of problems that it does. That's got on it how you use it. Alcohol is on there. You can look at other depressants. Is alcohol a stimulant or a depressant? It's a depressant. And when you're taking any kind of pills for depression or any kind of depressants for anything else, you magnify that hugely, and it can cause such a reduction in your system that you just quit breathing. I mean, it's a tough one to go through, and I've actually seen that happen. We're talking about Dilaudid, we're talking about Percodan, we're talking about all these different drugs that you know the names of. Now, how do you know if somebody's on that stuff? They're stupering. You've seen somebody drunk. They can't get their coordination down. They're staggering around. They don't know exactly what they're doing. But how do you know if somebody is on a stimulant? Well, I'll tell you how you know if somebody's on a stimulant. We're going to figure this out next time. But you're looking at these stimulants, it's high speed. Now, if you really wanted to know how you can know if you're on a stimulant, it'd be easy to tell you just by going, now! Because all of a sudden, you go, whoa, and your heart goes racing, and your eyes waking up, and all this stuff happens to you, and you're like this. Well, do that for 2 hours, and you begin to understand how they like to be pumped up. Stimulants, all these different forms. Bill's going to talk to you a little bit, I hope, about meth. Going to have some meth talk and about what that's going on around here. The other part of it is hallucinogens. I can say this real easy. Hallucinogens cause you to hear what you see and see what you hear. When you're doing LSD, when LSD was so big back when he was in school, is that what happened to you, or was there some other? Don't look around, I got you. No, hallucinogens, this is people you see. I saw one poor young 15-year-old that it got into his bloodstream and it got into his brain and it froze in that place. Every time he had the same symptom, they called them flashbacks. Every time he had the same lighting, sound, other things lined up, he would go immediately back into an LSD hit. He'd lose touch with reality. That's why you see the guy staring at the wall talking about how pretty it is. He hears somebody singing and he gets close because he can see the notes coming out their mouth. If you look on this kit, and you can't see it from where you are, and I hope maybe you'll come up here, you're going to see a little tattoo. They would make these little tattoos, especially, what singing group? You remember? One of the singing groups passed these out, and they slid them under their eyelids. because by sliding it under their eyelids, they'd have the highest level of absorption into their bloodstream to get the LSD hit in the middle of the concert. And they love the concert. They know they're at a concert, you know. Peyote, the Indians with peyote that they made legal, that's a hallucinogen. Heroin, opiates. And then down at the bottom of your card there and on the next 2 pages that we handed out, you're gonna see information on fentanyl and some of its derivatives. Now, why am I not gonna spend so much time over what these drugs look like? What difference does it make? They're pills, they're powders. It's smoke, it's vape. You're on. Only problem is I did not bring you a microphone. Oh. Well, let me do this real quick. Can
everybody hear me all right?
Well, we got it recorded, so you're going to have to kind of stay in this place right here.
Thank you, sir. Okay, note to the audience.
Bill King, tell them the rest.
Note to the audience, when Van Houser calls you and tells you he wants you to talk to a group of people for about 10 minutes, ask more questions. I had no idea that I was going to be on the stage in the auditorium in front of so many people. So that being said, I know some of you, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Bill King. I am a sergeant at the Parker County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently assigned to the School Resource Division, and I supervise that division. We have 5 different districts in Parker County. We have Brock, Millsap, Garner, Peaster, and Poolville. And I see Mr. Johnson sitting at the back of the room. So across the 5 districts, we have 5,660 students, give or take, and not quite 1,000 faculty and staff, and there are 6 of us. So there you go, and we're growing every day. Van asked me to come in and talk about what we are seeing here, actually here in Parker County, as far as the drug issue and the drug problem. And of course, the number one thing on the list is fentanyl. And the reason it's number one is because it is the most dangerous. My street crimes people tell me that in the last year, we have probably had 20 people pass away from a fentanyl overdose. And sadly enough, I was on my way out to one of the districts this morning, and it came over the radio. Someone found someone deceased with a needle sticking in their arm, and we're going to have to wait for the tox report to come back, but it looks like it was fentanyl, 39-year-old female. So, and as I said, it is the most dangerous because, you know, it will kill you quickly. Then, you know, marijuana. When people start talking about legalizing marijuana, you know, in my simple mind, I'm thinking, well, you know, they're going to roll up a cigarette, smoke it, something like that. When they start talking about legalizing marijuana, you got to be really careful just exactly what are they talking about, because there's all kinds of derivatives of marijuana. Copy that. You don't want to be on it. Oh, okay. Sorry. Like I said, ask more questions. You know, of course, you know, the marijuana, the thing that I think about, the plants, the cigarettes, things like that. But I was at a seminar back in July at a training seminar. And I mean, you want to talk about a real eye-opener, you know, the things that people use to get high. They were telling me about a marijuana or THC substance that was 99% pure. And it's a crystalline looking substance, you know, and when I was looking at the photographs of it and everything, I'm like, you know, I've probably seen that and didn't even know what it was. Of course, you know, if you've ever smelled the smell of burning marijuana, you'll never forget it. You know, I mean, it's just that simple. But the problem with it is you have the edibles, you have the vapes, and things like that. And so the thing about the derivatives, Delta 8 is the one that people always ask questions about. That's the one that you can buy in convenience stores and so forth and so on. But it is a Delta 9 THC derivative, but by law, it has to be under 0.3%. Okay. And, because that is legal in Texas, and that's, like CBD oils and CBD edibles and things like that. They'll all contain a certain amount of the THC, but it has to be under 0.3%. And so, that's where people get into trouble, especially our young folks, and like that 99% pure crystalline THC, the price point on it is $40 a gram. Now, when I was a kid, if I had $40, I was rich. Well, it's not that way anymore, folks. That at that price point, it puts it within reach of our youth. The other thing they told me to mention was laced pills. Has anybody heard about that? Okay, well, that's not exactly accurate. What is happening is the drug cartels are manufacturing these pills. And most of the pills they're manufacturing are fentanyl. But they compress them, and when they manufacture them, it looks like a prescription drug like Oxycontin or some other drug. And, of course, the person selling it knows that's what it is. Not necessarily the person buying it, and by the time it gets downstream and passes through 3 or 4 dealers' hands, somebody thinks that they're just buying Oxycontin. And then they get a big surprise. The other things that we deal with in Parker County, obviously methamphetamine. Back in the day, it was a laboratory process when they started manufacturing it. Now they shake and bake it. They'll use any kind of container that they can seal, and they'll put the components in there, and they'll just let the chemical reaction take place and then filter off the methamphetamine.
Say that again, because this is important. In other words, how the chemicals are where? Are they really hard to get?
No, they're not. They're not.
You can pick up these chemicals.
You can pick them up at
hardware stores.
Yes, grocery store.
And then you carry it and you put it in a container and you shake it, and you can get a high. You can get a surge of energy. We'll talk about it again next week about some of these. You can get what you want out of that. Maybe 7 of you in here may know how to do that. 2 of you may know how to do that. None of you may know how to do that. Kids know this stuff. They are watching this, don't they?
Yes.
They know
yes,
exactly where to get this stuff. If I ask many of you right now that said I'll give you $100 to the first person who go get me a blunt, a marijuana blunt, all right? Some of you go, it'd probably take me 2 or 3 days. Some of you go to your truck, but we're not going to talk about that. But some of you would go, I wouldn't have any clue where to go. I wouldn't have any clue where to go. If I said that in the high school room, it wouldn't take them 15 minutes to bring me back a whole box. That's the problem when that gets communication going on. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine, sir. You're fine, sir. The thing about the Delta 8, the stuff that you could buy in convenience stores and stuff like that, again, it is a variant of the Delta 9 THC. It's not approved by the FDA. It's not approved by the FDA for human consumption. So, there you go. But again, if people want to get high, they're going to find a way to do it.
That's right.
And nasal inhalers. I can't remember the brand of it now. Yeah, there you go. And they get.
When I found out about it.
They take those things apart and there's a piece of cotton batting inside that. It's supposed, you're supposed to take the cap off and inhale it. It's supposed to clear your sinuses up. Well, what these people are doing is, some of them even just take it out and chew it. okay? But most people put it in some kind of hot drink or something like that, and it's amphetamine, okay? And so, there are just all kinds of things like that. But what's going on in Parker County is obviously the fentanyl, marijuana, THC derivatives, the vapes, and, when we catch it, we take care of it, but, we don't, go ahead.
What we don't want much more of in Parker County is bath salts. They literally will take your brain. I mean, they will turn you into a zombie. And they are all over the place, and they are easy to get a hold of. I'm not talking about the kinds you're sprinkling into that's the name of them, is bath salts. And they are extremely dangerous, again, accessible to teens.
Excuse me, ma'am?
Did we put it on there? Go ahead.
No. We'll get you an answer to that question here in just a second, ma'am. Van mentioned LSD earlier. That pops up every once in a while. It's not as prevalent as it used to be. Probably 10 years ago, the thing was heroin. All right, now it's fentanyl. So, anybody have any questions?
Let me say something else here. If you'll stand close, I can get we'll be friends. I want you to, not quite that friendly, there are. Peanut butter.
Yeah.
Can they get high on peanut butter?
Yep. Okay, folks, you can laugh, but there was a deal here several years ago where young people were superheating peanut butter and sniffing the fumes. It's kind of like sniffing paint, and they were getting high off of those. Well, they thought they were getting high. What they were really doing was poisoning themselves. Okay.
All these are fumes. The other thing was to inject peanut butter into your vein, and you would get this rush as it went through the heart if it got there. Very, very common. Any other law enforcement in here has dealt with this stuff? This is the peanut butter thing on this. Toluene, Scotchgard, boys who would sit at their desk like this all through the session while they were huffing the Scotchgard out of the clothing. All the chemicals that are under your sink. I went to Parkland Hospital at one time. A young man had died. His two friends were there with him, and they called on me to go over there and just visit with them. They were going to have a TV thing. And I was talking to the kids before we went on, and they're standing there looking at the body of their friend, and they had huffed Freon, okay? They had done Freon. It killed them because they got the wrong pipe open, and the oil went into his lungs, all this different stuff. And the kid's statement was, if they knew it was bad for us, why didn't they put a sign on it? Now, how do you deal with stupid? Okay? But how do you keep stupid from being stupid? Because that same thing that I just said to you could be something that some kid uses on your child or uses on one of your friends by saying, oh, that's not the truth. It won't hurt you. Oh, we heard it all. Centrifugal force to separate drugs by using pantyhose. Cooking it by using the rectum in a plastic bag to get it to the right heat to inject. I want to tell you something. That's why I know you want to know all about all the different drugs and what all the drugs do, and that may be important. What's important to know is drugs kill kids. You don't have to get them into an argument about whether a little meth or a little of this or a little of that might hurt me, and what their friends have said at school. Oh, I'm going to tell you something. There's a whole thing out there about how marijuana doesn't do this, marijuana storing in the fat cells. Listen, I've listened to all this stuff, and I'm going to tell you right now, I have seen too many families destroyed because of one guy on marijuana. Would not get up and go to work, would not pay his bills, would not be responsible for the children. All they wanted to do was just chill out. And that's all they did. They become interesting. Hang on just a minute. They talk about not being addictive. Your child will say, marijuana is not addictive. Well, okay, it's not physically addictive. You become psychologically dependent. All right? Now, which would you rather have? A drug you can walk away from and get enough distance that you don't do it again, or one that's in your head? And the psychological dependence was worse. Go, bro.
It's allergy season. If your children are at high school or junior high and they sneeze and they got the watery eyes, tell them don't take, if their friends say, I got some allergy pills, you can have one. Make sure you tell your children never take allergy pills from somebody at school because they lace them with bad stuff.
Yeah, and you're right on. This new whole thing about lacing allergy pills with meth. And they can put a drop, just that of fentanyl in there. Hopefully they can get a little flight. But they're giving, you never, ever, as a child, you never take pills from another kid. And I guess it used to be in school, if you did that, if you were giving other two kids 2 aspirin, you can get in trouble. I don't know.
It's still that way.
Is that still that way?
Yes.
You know, they can get in trouble. Anybody else? We're going so fast through this. I spent many years, and next week, probably a big week, because we're going to talk about how the signs and symptoms work, how you can get an idea of what's going on, and I'm going to show you how to do that simple eye test that you can meet a child or grandchild at the back door every time they come in and say, look at my flashlight. And we're going to check some pupils. We'll show you how to do some of that. Again, don't put fear into your child's life, but here's what you teach them. If you think your friend's not ready to drive, carry a flashlight. I'll show you how to do it. It's not rocket science because policemen do it.
Every day.
Thank you, Bill. Thank Bill for me. He came in tonight free of charge. All right, anybody else got a question before we go? I hope I'm not going, are you okay? We're going too fast, or you overload, or is it helpful? Well, this is on the web. The first clickbait session is already recorded and there. This one will be recorded and on there. And they can also download the book at that same location so you can inform people you know. You can go back and try to review some of this. If I could just encourage you, I read the book. Yes. Who's that back there? Oh, hi, visitor. Cradle? I don't know which one they're selling here because I haven't been, the powder or the, all right, Kratom. This is a drug that comes out of Colorado. It is legal, quote unquote, in Colorado. They sell it over that, and it comes in. You can chew it, you can vaporize it, you can inhale it, and it's a methamphetamine, a speed, a stimulant. And so you can use that in that form, and you can get that just by ordering on that. I think it's on that sheet, but I'm not sure. Here's the problem. And I agree. I wish we could get all those things that the kids know are drugs and that are on there, get them out of the school, out of the stores. We're putting gas in the cars. If they want to get high, they're going to huff gas. If they want to get high, they're going to find something. They just hunt it down. Every time we've shut down different things, They've just gone to another. And you talk about some bad stuff, inhalants. You talk about another bad stuff. You got athletes, steroids. I almost rather my child would be on meth than steroids. Steroids are that bad. They are horrific on the damage they do to the body. And yet, you know, it's just a chemical. These kids aren't afraid of chemicals. You were saying KRATOM, right? Are they really? No, kratom's a bad deal. It used to be kind of sold as no worse than marijuana. What are you telling me? It's no worse than marijuana, you know? It's no worse than death. I mean, you know, no, it's bad stuff. And it does create a physical dependency pretty quick, too. It'll make you want it bad. Kratom, K-R-A-T-O-M. I thought we listed it in there, and if not, I'm sure she'll take care of that. Different ways. Again, go on the web. Listen, there's a Kratom Facebook page. Kids go to Facebook. They can get on there and find out how to use it in different ways. So they can take it in no time. Rohypnol, as you know, is a date rape drug. That was basically used for people that needed to go to sleep fast. So it was a legal drug. It was not a synthetic drug. It was a chemical drug. Synthetic drugs like this fentanyl and all this stuff, you don't have any clue who's doing the cooking. You don't have any clue. This isn't a pharmacist down there in Mexico or China or wherever. They just cranking them out. All right, I got to let you go. We're going to have to just run from here and trust that God understands. We love you, God, and we pray amen. Okay, you need to go. We got to get going. All right.